Acknowledgements, and then Councillor Isles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Bevan. I'm really liking the read of the report, having our actuals and our variances and our anticipated budget towards the end of the next quarter. Just looking on page 13, and I see the holiday part has income. While I know it's a nominal amount, I just wanted to cross-reference whether we've got any investment going in the holiday park when we can't afford it for this coming year.
At this point, we don't have any significant investment going in. We've got some projects that are underway, renewal type projects, but no significant ones. There are some opportunities of a commercial nature that will probably come through with the new council potentially, which, because we've got a number of cabins, etc., that we lease, and those cabins are really highly utilised. So there might be some investments that return some revenue to the council.
Thank you. And just a supplementary, it's just a bit of a shame because we've come through the busy summer season, and this quarter we're not likely to be able to improve our financial position very much until next summer. I've got a couple of other quick ones.
You might as well while you've got the floor.
I'm just looking at the non-rates table on page 16, and yeah, that's really great that we've gone from 3.9 from the end of December quarter to 3.2 million. And if we take the 1.6 from the airport fees that are owed to us by the Crown, that's making us look into a much better position. And really pleased to see that we're staying consistent with the number of rates that have been able to be paid at 96%. I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. I know there is a lot of hurt out there. To be able to still maintain that sort of percentage is really great. And good work to the rates and the communications team who've been able to, have more people be able to apply for the rate rebates. So thank you.
Thank you. I've also I see Stuart. Welcome to our meeting, Stuart. Sorry I didn't acknowledge you earlier. Is your question related to something that's already been said, or can I put you down and after the two councillors I've already got?
Yes, please. Thanks very much.
It's a different question, so...
Yep. Two different questions, but I'll wait my turn, and if they get answered, I'll let you know.
Yeah, thanks. I'll pop you in the order. I've got Councillor James, then Councillor Isles, then yourself, Stuart.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for this, Bevan. Just going back to what Councillor Dennis was bringing up, these so-called surplus or savings.
Sorry, Wilson, could you just pop your...
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep. The so-called surplus or savings, whatever we like to call it, how much of that is timing related and how much of it is actual, it won't be a spend?
So the savings are generated, or surplus is generated in the operating area. A number of those won't be spent because they're tied to things like, the freeze on FTE, etc. So I don't see that surplus significantly changing in terms of we're going to go out and spend a whole lot more money. From a revenue perspective, operating revenue is reasonably consistent. So I don't see anything impacting that either.
So there's no real fear of that getting pushed into the next financial year?
No, operating surpluses we won't push through.
Okay.
Those go through to our equity at the end of the year.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think I might just say, you just said about the freeze on FTEs. I just sort of reading social media and all that. I think we just need to make sure we're clear that it's a freeze on it's new positions. It's that we are still replacing existing positions. I've just been reading a few social media things, and there seems to be a bit of confusion out there. So I just think with our terminology, we need to just make sure what we're saying is new FT. Sorry, Bevan. Councillor Isles?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, thanks, Bevan. The reporting that you're providing us now is just a breath of fresh air. I'm just going back to page 11, item 7.1, second bullet point. The forecast provided by budget managers is for a 75% delivery of capital projects by the end of this financial year. That would have to be one of the highest percentages I think we've experienced since I've been on council anyway. Is there a likelihood that we'll go higher than 75%, or is it sort of weather related, or is it staff related or contract related that possibly won't allow us to go any higher than 75%?
That's a challenging one. Like I said, your spend usually occurs at the end of the financial year. And this being year one of an LTP and the challenges we had with Waka Kotahi funding at the start set us off on a little bit of a back foot.
Right.
So there's always a bit of a catch up there. The other side of it is spend is not a good correlation to project delivery as well. So we're trying to measure CapEx delivery based on how much we've spent, not actually how much we've delivered. So I think you'll get some better information in the future when you're combining what we've spent versus where we are in terms of delivery of the project. I think it will get better as we build more maturity with project management systems and that methodology and the framework. The real opportunity is going to be when we use those tools as we develop the LTP. So we know that we've got a very realistic capital works program. At the moment, we've got a program that hasn't had that opportunity to have that lens over it. So it should get better.
No, excellent. Thanks, Bevan.
Thank you. Stuart?
Thank you, Maureen, folks. And through the chair, thank you very much for letting me ask a couple of questions. My first one is actually just a pick up from Wilson's question. You gave the idea on what was happening with operating income, but my question is around the operating expenditure, and we have this quite significant deficit, shall we say, in the payment to suppliers, and that's kind of supporting most of the surplus from an operating perspective. Is any of that going to be carried forward to next year? I mean, is it in relation to capital expenditure? Are we going to see that? Are we going to see that reappear?
You won't see that reappear from a capital expenditure related side of things. We do have some operational projects that are...
No, that's not that. Yeah, that's my absolute point. And yeah. I'm talking above the line here. I'm not looking at capital. I'm looking at the payment to suppliers.
Yep. Yeah, sorry, you mentioned capital project. Sorry, you mentioned capital project, but yeah, there are operational projects in there that will carry forward. It doesn't mean that we've budgeted incorrectly. It's a scheduling thing. So whilst we've collected the revenue for it, that will be, we won't be collecting more revenue for it in the next year. So a good example is our ERP project, where we haven't spent as much to date as we had identified we would. So we're not going to change the funding or collect more revenue to try and carry that project on. That one will carry forward.
So that variance that you're expecting for the end of this year of 3,099,000 on payments to suppliers, is the majority of that's going to essentially come through to next year.
I wouldn't say the majority, but there are some operational projects that will carry forward.
Okay, thank you. And my second question was just in relation to the financing costs. I mean, given that we've probably less debt than we have budgeted because we've got this bow wave in relation to capital expenditure. What was the major reason that our financing costs have blown out as much as they have in terms of variance to budget?
The largest contributing factor for that is pre-funding. And so you should see in your other operating revenue, finance income, where we put that
Yes.
pre-funding onto term deposit.
Under other operating income, a good portion of that 1 million is from the deposits on the pre-funding. Yeah.
Correct.
Great. So that's okay. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
Thanks very much. That's me.
Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you. On page 13, I hope we're there, it talks about building inspection forecasts less than budget by 352,000. Is this an alarm bell that says that there's actually less building consents out there, that there's less building and happening, etc.?
Yeah, there's a bit of that, and we've made sure we've adjusted some of our revenue assumptions for the annual plan as a result. So I think we've seen less building consents, we've seen less resource consents this year, and so we're using that to inform the annual plan.
Does that also then follow on that, because I know every council in New Zealand is short of building inspectors and we've had to contract work out, does that mean if there's a lot less of that, then there's actually the complementary thing is that we're actually paying less contractors to fulfil our building inspection requirements?
I don't know how the building inspection side of things is resourced. I know we did used to have some contracts. I'm not too sure whether, I think we've got a reasonable internal contingent now, but I'm not, you need to ask David, I think.
If we put this an action point, please, to find that out. Also, on page 15, let's see if I can find it. 15, where is it? There's the talks under community facilities. It talks about 100,000 put aside to be budgeted for the Taniatua School Hall refurbishment. Now, that's a shared asset, is it, between us and the Taniatua School, the hall? And why have we got to the stage where there's no forecast currently included? Does that mean that we haven't had time to be able to do the plans for what we're going to do to that hall?
Yeah, I think that's something that's come out of a conversation with the school and Ministry of timing around Ministry of Education funding. But I can get a bit more detail in relation to that project if you want.
I'd be interested in where that's going, because I know once the Te Teko Memorial Hall was done up and also the Manuahei District Hall was done up, it actually lifts the whole community. That Paul Edhouse has done a lot of work at Manuahei recently and changed the kitchen around and all sorts of stuff, and it's just lifted the community and they're really proud of it. So I would like to see that something is done about that going forward. Thank you.
Just on that point, can I confirm if there was a specific action from that discussion, just so we can capture it in the minutes, please?
Thank you.
What was the action, please?
Could we please have a report back on where we're at with the Taniatua School Hall that we are co-owners of, and when we think that will be refurbished?
Thank you.
Or potentially just maybe an
So just-
update. Doesn't have to be a full report, does it? You could just be,
It'd be nice to get someone to come back,
yeah.
even if they ring.
Sort of update rather than necessarily
Thank you.
full report. Councillor Boynton.
Kia ora, thank you. And like everyone else, Bevan, it's really lovely to look at the report and for it to make some sense, even though as a first-term councillor it's taken a while to look through the different things that we've had over the last couple of years, but this made it really easy to understand. Thank you. I have two questions. They're two different ones. The first one is for page 15, 4.4, and it's just relating to the stormwater comment there. And you've got there related to local waters done well, 255k. Is that funding that's been received? and for that?
We do have some remaining transition funding, and I think off the top of my head it was around 280,000 from DIA. We didn't. There was one last tranche we needed to claim, and the other part of it is the rates review process that we're working through. So the reason that sits in the stormwater activity, and it's one of the nuances we've got with how we operate the three waters, is that most of the staff costs, etc., go into stormwater first as kind of the operating centre, and then it goes out to the other activities through direct cost allocations. So stormwater is kind of where everything naturally sits.
A supplementary to that question. So the transition funding was from previous funding received by DEA, not specifically for local water done well?
Yeah, it was the Labor-led Three Waters reform
Okay.
funding. When National got in and changed it to local water done well, there was no funding provided, but the government still retained the transition funding that we had.
Thank you. And just my last question. This is just an overall question, and it's one that's come through via social media. How with because like the other members have pointed out, when people read this, they sort of think, oh, there's a surplus there. What does that mean? And one of the partai has been about the $14 million deficit that we hold, and how does that impact that? So, looking at this, it looks good to us because it's within the annual budget, we're doing okay, we're tracking okay, but how does that impact the overall $14 million deficit?
That's a great question. So when we develop an annual plan or budget for the year, we outline the expenditure that we expect to spend, the revenue we expect to collect, and the CapEx elements. We're in a position where the current expenditure is greater than the revenue, and so if we're keeping rates at a certain level, you've got to fund the balance with debt. So that's a conceptual budget, right? So at the end of the financial year, if the need for borrowing is less because we haven't spent as much OPEX, it will reduce the amount that we borrow. And so part of the work that I'm doing around with the annual plan is tracking what we've actually borrowed at the end of the years and what we've said we were going to borrow, which helps to give us the position, the starting position we've got going up in the annual plan paper, where we are borrowing much less than, about $10 million less than we said we were going to borrow.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor James and Councillor Puller.
Yeah, on page 15, Parks and Reserves, Valley Road tree harvest. There's been a lot of comment about the cost of getting a helicopter and everything, but the log haulers aren't cheap to operate either, and I don't even know whether a log hauler would have been able to move that wood anyway. But these figures here, are they just our expenses, or is there the return on the wood as well in those figures?
I don't know the full detail behind that one. I expect the return on the wood was wrapped up in the whole procurement, and so we contracted the whole thing out, so what the contractor expected to get from a return would reduce or offset the cost. So I expect the return's already in there, but I'd just like to highlight that, that is the whole Parks and Reserves budget, not just one specific project. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Councillor Puller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, Councillor James asked my question, but I just wondered where there was cost, because it's quite topical really about the helicopter flying around everywhere. Did we not get our numbers right from day one in that?
I think it's a good learning opportunity. when we go to tender for work, we rely on the expertise of the people that respond to those tenders. And we make a call, and we evaluate the tender and make a call at that time. I don't know the details, but I don't think any of the tenders identified the need for a helicopter, but I could be wrong. So I think it's on further investigation and working through the project, you come up with these variations, and it's pretty normal to have variations. And then it's a conversation with the contractor around how you deal with those and how you share the costs, so to speak.
I accept what you're saying, Bevan, but and you do get variations. I understand that, but I just wonder, and I don't want to poke a stick, but that project was not a good look, I don't think. Thank you.
Councillor Dennis.
In regard to the same subject, I had a few concerns by that. Are you saying that the 395,000 is coming back on us, overspend?
That's not completely related to the tree project. That's the whole Parks and Reserves budget. In terms of cost in relation to the harvesting, it is our project, and where we've gone through a variation process and accepted it will be our cost.
It'd be interesting to find out what the exact overrun was on that one. And my concern is too that for a place that's in the middle of the town, I didn't think the tidy up was done that well. I know that there's a lot of slash left over, and some of the locals are going up there and collecting firewood, and one bit of firewood moved and trapped a person up there, so the local emergency service had to attend. So A, it hasn't been finished off properly to make it safe as yet. I presume it's still work in progress. And B, the place, I don't know if you could totally fence it off, but that's all I have.
My understanding, the project, the harvesting's finished, and there's still the tidy up work to do, and that's where the Parks and Reserves and Open Spaces team are working with local contractors to finish off that side of it. But the harvesting work's done. I think it is fenced off, but it's one of those.
And so is there
ones.
More ongoing costs in regard to that?
I think we've got the full budget covered from my conversations with Alex and Ian.
Thank you.
I think given GM isn't here, I think we'll just put that on our action list as well, just if we could get an update on just what the actual cost was and what the actual revenue was, because we're sort of not seeing the whole picture reflected here, and we don't have our GMs able to respond here, so we'll put that as an action list to give us a proper analysis.
And to that point, for a finance and performance meeting, it's a bit sad that we haven't got most of the GMs here, I'd say.
I think it's fair to say that we have a few GMs who aren't well at the moment, which is why they're not here, otherwise they would have been here, so. Right, do we have, oh, sorry, I've just about forgotten my own comment. So on page 13, where you've got the bullet points and you're talking about the building inspection forecast and the parking enforcement forecast, I think just going forward, it just might be better just to have a little bit more explanation why. A couple of questions have come out of that already. That was one thing I noticed when I read it. You've sort of given a better explanation about the holiday park forecast, which makes more sense, but the other three are just sort of statements, and it just would be more value to us if we had a reason as to why those forecasts were less than the budget, just going forward. Yep. Thanks, Bevan. So if we don't have any more questions, we can put the motion that the financial reporting is at 31 March 25 report be received. It's on page 10. Do we have any, thank you, Councillor Puller moves, Deputy Mayor Imick seconds. Do we have any debate? No, we'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? None. Carried. Right. Thank you very much, and thanks for those great explanations, Bevan. Right, we'll move on to page 20, our health and safety report. And Evelyn, are you wanting to lead us through that?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read. As I mentioned in the pre-agenda, this is the start of our new metrics around health and safety reporting. You'll see some of the categories as pretty slim pickings as we're trying to build a machine. And as an attachment, I've just provided you with an example of some of the project reporting around our implementation of that health and safety strategy. So I'm happy to take any questions. Michelle, who's our resident health and safety expert, we've got a lot of managers on EOC training yesterday and today, which is hugely important. So I'll do the best I can to respond to anything. And just to let you know, on the 26th of May, Dickie de Klerk will start as our new health and safety manager. So we're really excited about bringing Dickie on board. He brings with him a wealth of experience, particularly around compliance, which will be hugely appreciated by us.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any questions? We'll take questions for the report and the appendix. So does anybody have any questions for Emlyn? Councillor Boynton.
Kia ora, Emlyn. Thank you for your report. I was just wondering, with the project, it really sounds great, and the mahi that's happening. Is there a component where council members are a part of a health and safety and wellbeing strategy?
So through you, Chair, that's a really good question. And as part of that work, it is fair to say that the exec team are officers under the Act, so we will be liable for any incidents or accidents in the workplace. However, Council, as the board, does have a role to play, not necessarily in the implementation of that strategy, but it's about us giving you confidence that the strategy is being implemented, and that's what these reports will do as we build that information. Part of there is a line around training for councillors, so around good governance around health and safety, and that will be rolled out in time.
Thank you.
Right, do we have any other questions, Councillor Dennis?
I noticed on page 22 on the bottom bullet point, or one of the bullet points, it talks about high potential events are currently not defined and communicated to workers. Isn't that a major failure in our health and safety system? If you've got a highly potential event, why wouldn't you communicate that to workers?
So it has previously been communicated. However, part of the work that we're doing with the exec team is around identification of critical risks, and once they are defined and identified by the exec team, then that will be rolled out to managers, particularly in those high-risk roles where we've got a lot of contractor management. So it is known by workers, but it's part of that process around the role of the officer is around the exec team having a strong understanding of what our risks are and then communicating those risks and how you manage them.
But if you have a high potential event and things are a bit astray while we're bringing the new system in, wouldn't the individual managers or foremen of that team at a toolbox meeting at the beginning of the day just say to the boys, look, just remember that, boys and girls, sorry, just be aware of this thing, it's still an issue and it's still a high potential risk? And
that is going on. But actually what we've identified is under the Health and Safety Act, it's, as I've said, the officers are responsible for health and safety in organisations. So we need to clearly define and identify what our risks are and then communicate those with the managers. They're having those toolbox meetings and they're going through those risk identification and management every day. But actually, if there was an incident and WorkSafe came in, they'd say, well, at what point did the exec team have that discussion and identify them? And if we weren't able to say that, then there'd be further work to do. So it is happening on the ground, but the important bit is it's happening with the exec team.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Iming.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Emlyn. Thank you very much for the report. My question is kind of almost in two parts. With this new system, does this give us benchmarking analysis versus other councils?
It could do. We haven't got that far yet. We're just trying to get our own house in order. We are, so one of the areas that I'd like the new health and safety manager to focus on is playing a larger role in that Bot Blast Health and Safety Forum. So I've made some inroads there. What I have identified already is when I've reached out to ask them about reporting, I've got 8 different versions of a report. So it's about us developing metrics that suit us and suit our systems. But we will certainly be looking to work with BotBlast a lot more.
All right, and just the second one is the council mark evaluation system, which evaluates councils against councils. So does this fit into that as well, or is that something completely different?
There is, in what I know about Council Mark, there is an element of health and safety. It is a small element. Council Mark is largely about council processes and governance and democracy and decision making and finance systems, but there is an element of health and safety reporting in there, but it's a small element.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Tunchos.
Thank you. Thanks, Emlyn. I have two questions. My first one is on page 22, and it relates to, it's the second bullet point talking about the 51% of all events were relating to aquatics and recreational services. And so that's what, 20 or so events, 10% increase. It's a bit hard to see a trend because the numbers are quite low, but I'm interested, it's saying, 38% were related to theft or aggressive members of the public. And I know aggression towards staff is an ongoing issue at the Aquatic Centre. So I was just wanting to get a sense of, is this something that we think is increasing or staying the same? And what do we have good measures in place to make sure our staff are safe?
I think actually Dylan's on the line, but what I would say is what we noticed post-COVID, all of our facilities have seen an increase. That's probably anecdotal at this stage. So it's been a difficult one, Councillor. We've started to collect data and clean up all that data, and this is the first time that we've got some confidence in that data. So I'll be interested to see how it plays out over time. We do spend a lot of time, Dylan in particular, at the Aquatic Centre, around de-escalation training. And I know that Dylan has a morning toolbox meeting and an afternoon where they talk about events during the day. So it is a big focus for us. And just to let you know, as part of that induction for the new health and safety manager, we are lining up those kind of key relationships in the organisation. So particularly like Dylan, the Aquatic Centre, that's where we're carrying a lot of risk. So we'll be looking to build up those relationships.
Okay. So I suppose as with better data over time, we'll get a better picture of what's going on. In relation to that bullet point as well, it talks about 19% of events related to pool users. Is that, I'm trying to understand what that means. Is that where people who are swimming have an incident that puts them at risk?
I haven't got that data in front of me. What I would say is slips, trips and falls usually.
Okay, oh yeah, all right, cool. Thank you. My other question relates to page 28, and it's just going through the whakaora project updates. And at the top there's a red, the goal is 100% of job descriptions include health and safety responsibilities. How far away are we from that, or what's the update with that?
Not too far.
Okay.
Without giving you a date. Actually, to give you an idea about what we're trying to do, first of all, is ensure that whatever changes we make are well established and there for time. So we brought in an external and we found an internal resource. And what they're doing at the moment is almost doing an audit of all the health and safety stuff that we have. And we found a lot of drafts, a lot of things that are expired. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that when we introduce policies or new processes, is that they're in the right place, people can find them, that they're well documented. So this is one of those where actually we want to make sure that when we make that change, that all of our job descriptions have got a consistent message in there. And equally, we've got some roles that carry more risk. So what does that look like for those roles? Is there another section that talks about their particular health and safety? So it isn't far away. It is one of our priorities, but it's just not there yet.
Councillor Boynton.
Hi, yes, thank you, Emlyn, again. I just had a question. With page 22, and we've got the tables there with WIP, which is work in progress, and how far away, do we end up seeing what the percentage is? Because, that's the metrics, and at the moment there's not really many metrics showing. When will we see where that's landed?
I can't give you an answer on that at the moment, but what I would say is you'll see more over time.
Okay.
A lot more over time once we've got resource in there.
And second question was just to do with the appendix on page 27, and I just I was trying to look for the key. What does the grey dots mean? Not yet started or something?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. There was keys for the other colours, not grey. Thanks.
Councillor Dennis.
Well, thank you. On page 23, talks about workers who complete a required external training. 39 workers received external training this quarter. Could you tell us what those are? Because as health and safety officers within the organisation, it's up to us to actually make sure stuff is happening. So is that first aid? Is that security training?
I can find that information for you and send it up if you like, Councillor. There may be some, I think there was some training around working in confined spaces, and there was some first aid training as well, but I can find that information for you.
Thank you. And just in future, will we actually break down the training that we get done? We used to actually have a breakdown when we had our last health and safety manager, and it used to actually give you quite a good description on what we were doing so that we knew as health and safety officers what was happening in the organisation. So that'd be good to have in future reports. Thank you.
Right, if we don't have any other questions, I'll call for a mover in a second. Councillor Isles moves, Councillor Boynton seconds. I'll put the motion on page 20 that the Finance and Performance Committee receive the Health and Safety and Wellbeing Report Q3. Do we have any debates? No. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? None. Right, well, carried. We'll move now on to our third report for the day, our all performance report on page 31. Now, who would like to take us through this one? Is that, there we go, Sarah. And Sarah and yeah, I was just taking a double take. Was it Sarah and Sarah? Thanks. Welcome to the table.
Kia ora koutou. Yes, you get the two Sarahs today because I think I've just got one on myself. Hawaii and Ayla are both on their emergency management training today.
Lovely.
We'll tag team. So the purpose of this report is to present the organisation performance report for Q3, which
Sorry,
is,
Sarah, could you just pull your mic?
sorry,
I know you've
I'm
got it
too
on, but
quiet.
just, get it a bit close.
Okay, so this covers the period 1 January to 31st of March this year. The report aims to provide a high-level overview of performance across a wide range of measures, which cover the service performance, financial performance, organisational preparedness, organisational health, as well as an update on our business plan. You can take the report as read, but just to highlight just a couple of items. Overall resident satisfaction with council services this quarter increased by 4%. There's been an increase to requests for service recorded this quarter, but this is largely due to a change in how we log calls on the same issue. So as well as staff on the emergency roster has increased this quarter, so we are now over the minimum requirement for a full EOC. Staff turnover is low at just over 5%, and the business plan shows that overall we're tracking well with our work program, with 9% of projects, only 9% of projects behind schedule. So I'll hand back to the chair, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. Do we have any questions of clarification on the report and the Appendix 1? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning, ladies. Thanks for the report and for standing in. I'm just looking at page 32, and I know that we've brought this up before and not wanting to shoot any messenger. 46% for cyber security training of staff. I mean, that seems to have gone down from last time. Like every staff member that has a device should be doing cyber security training, and I'm just kind of a bit befuddled about why more emphasis is not put on that.
Yeah, through your chair, we are about to roll out a programme that changes how cybersecurity is rolled out. The numbers have increased over the last quarter, but we know there's some work to do in that space, so we are looking at our options to increase that significantly.
Do we have that as a comparative measure, like over certain quarters and stuff like that?
We could probably dig that out. I know there was a decline, but at the last quarter, I think the last 2 quarters, it has increased.
So just the supplementary. So you're rolling out something which sounds like it's going to take a wee while, and I guess I'm saying, is it a priority? Because it doesn't seem to have been a priority the whole time since I've been on council.
So what we are seeing is we send out random emails that are samples of phishing exercises, and we've seen a dramatic reduction in people clicking those links. So whilst we don't get 100% completion, we are seeing a significant behaviour change. So people are behaving a lot better around cybersecurity. So I've got confidence in what we've done so far has worked. So we are looking at actually is an option that we make it mandatory for everyone, but would that get us a better result? We don't know. What we are seeing is that people are behaving pretty well from the approach we've taken so far. So sometimes the completion rate doesn't give you an accurate picture of how the organisation is performing, but my own view is that we should have it higher than in the 40s, and we are looking at options.
That's right, well, we'd like to be seeing it in the 90s, I guess. And seriously, it's 2 minutes like once a month or every 6 weeks. So I don't know why staff can't get on board like the councillors have to.
Thanks, and it's probably an opportune time to remind ourselves as councillors to stay up to date with our training as well. And I can say that because I did my 3 yesterday. Councillor Boynton.
Yes, I just had a question on page 40, just in regards to the organisational cultural competency. Is the 48 staff from the whole, just from this period or quarter, or for the year? The 48 staff who's participated in cultural competency activities, page 40.
Thank you. Through the chair, so that will be for the quarter, for the January to March period.
Because I understand there would be people coming on. Okay, great, that's good to know. I was just a bit worried if it was the whole organisation for the whole time. Also, in previous, the previous report that we received, it had further detail about what the Koi Tuia team had done in terms of output. Is there more coming on that in terms of the programs they had completed in the quarter? Or is this is just showing that mahi now?
Yeah, so this report here is just, like you said, showing for this quarter.
Okay, great.
And then, it will be that mahi through the Te Toiwaka whakarei strategy will be reported in the annual report as well, and that narrative will be weaved through the annual report against that.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And just one question, page, it won't come up the page. I think it's 43. It's page 9 on the actual thing report. I don't know why my page is frozen, but it is to do with the graph that details the website engagement. So 43, yes, website engagement. And you've got the numbers there in green, and then on top you've got blue. So I just wanted to find out if the green is showing the total number, and if the blue that's on top with the 37,000, 33,000 is additional to that, or are they part of the 71? Because otherwise it looks like a big drop, but there is sort of like a drop in terms of visits over time. So I was just trying to... Page 43, number of website page visits.
I would say that was an addition. So the blue is then.
It's an addition.
Yes.
Okay.
But we
I
can
just wanting to
double check
make sure that they're not just sort of like. They're. Oh yeah. Okay. No, that looks much better then. Thank you.
Right, I've got Councillor Puller and then Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a subject you touched on was our training, and while we're questioning staff, I guess important that we do our own. So the no before that we do, is it, can you track that we're actually doing that or?
Yes, they can.
Right. I'm up to date, that's okay. Thank you.
As long as Mary's not doing it, John.
Thanks, Councillor Paula. Councillor O'Brien.
Just again, in reference to page 43, Lagoimas. I see a number withdrawn. I understand, I guess, the amount of time, effort, resources and expenses on people who put Lagoimas in. If they're withdrawn for whatever reason, or either change to general inquiry, are they afforded the cost? I mean, they could have wasted our time. Who pays for that if we put all the time and effort and then all of a sudden they decide to withdraw? And should they?
Through the chair, my understanding is at the point the majority would be withdrawn, no cost has been incurred, and sometimes it is as a result of understanding that if it proceeds, it's going to cost money that they actually withdraw. So I don't think that there is a risk of us incurring dramatic costs in there. Yeah, we do on charge effectively. That's my understanding.
Thanks for that, Lenny. But if they do, for whatever reason, put our staff through all their time and effort and resources and expense, who pays for that if they decide I'm not to bother with the Lagoima? Should we make them accountable?
Do you mean...
Whoever puts in the Lagoima.
So when someone lodges a Lagoima, we assess as to how long that will take.
Yeah.
If it's more than 2 hours, then we advise them they'll be charged for that. And at that point, most will withdraw. But if it's under 2 hours, then that's built into our costs. So we develop that information for them.
Right. Steve, our Chief Executive's got his hand up.
Yeah, morning, Tato. Actually, I was just going to say what Emlyn said. The process, Councillor O'Brien, is that staff will assess if it's going to take a lot of time to respond. Then I send a letter out to the person who submitted the Lagoima saying, actually, this is what it's going to cost us. Do you want to proceed? And then they choose whether or not they want to proceed. We haven't had a situation that I'm aware of where someone has said, yes, I want to proceed, and then pulled out. Like actually that hasn't happened. I think normally people will make an assessment and decide whether or not to proceed or not, and usually they get withdrawn when they see the cost of actually getting all the information that they're seeking. But we haven't come across that problem yet.
Got to chip in it. Thank you for the clarification.
Thanks for that, Steve. Do we have any further questions? Councillor Boynton?
I'm just trying to locate it, sorry. I think it was to do with page, oh my gosh, my page number won't come up, but it says page 14 in the appendix of the page 48. But I'm just trying to locate it, but I did see somewhere, and you can correct me, in regards to variations with regards to Rex Morpeth Park. Is that correct?
Yes, there was a comment somewhere about that. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, there's so many bullet points. Maybe I'm imagining it.
No, there was a comment about it.
I was there.
Finding the page.
I just had a question about, what did that mean in terms of the variance and whether or not that's been put on hold? I realised that earlier, Bevan, in his report, he identified that the pre-loading or funding for that project hasn't quite been done, so I just wondered if it was related to that.
The pre-funding was borrowing some more money from local government funding agency ahead of repaying an existing loan. So we call that pre-funding the loan.
Okay. So is it there? Sorry, I really thought I had seen something there with regards to Rex Morpeth Park project.
It doesn't look like it's
Oh,
under the business
sorry.
plan. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, but I can find out for you if you.
You're welcome, Councillor Winter, if you find it later, just to email the staff.
Okay then, sorry
directly with
about
it and they
that.
can respond.
I really,
Yeah. Do we have any other questions? If not, I will call for a mover and a seconder. Councillor James moves, seconder Councillor O'Brien. The recommendation is that the report be received on page 31. Do we have any debate? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to our very last report of the day, on page 56, our LTP non-financial performance reporting. And who have we got here? We've got same team.
Same again.
Lovely. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this report is the your long-term plan non-financial measures reporting for quarter 3, so from January through to March. So the report predominantly focuses on the measures that have not been met or are at risk of not being met for the year end. So this report tracks against 40 of our non-financial performance measures, noting there are 69 in the LTP. So at present, 28 are on track to be achieved, 7 are at risk, and these relate to road safety, transport, resource management, waste management, climate change and water supply. And 5 are known to have not met the target that they relate to, and these are democracy, wastewater and water supply. We do, as you are aware, we bring the data owners where possible to these meetings, just to help answer any questions that you may all have. So I'll pass back to you now, the Chair, for any discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Do we have any questions on the report and the 2 appendices? Councillor Dennis.
Page 59, I hope I'm in the right area. It talks under 4.3.1 about the road crashes. It talks that the target is fewer crashes than the year before, and the 2021-22 were 23 crashes. Actually, no, I need to work that out. No, the 2023-24, 23 crashes, which were 2 less than the year before. But so far this year in 6 months, we've had 22 crashes, so almost the same as the whole year previously. And under there's a comment that says, a reduction in available funding from the start of the financial year has meant fewer road safety activities and events that could be delivered by council. Is that a direct correlation to the fact that in 6 months we've had as many crashes as we had in the whole year for the previous period?
Kia ora, everybody. At this moment in time, we're actually looking at 26 DSIs, or deaths and serious injuries, up from the previous year. Is that the question you're asking, or?
So my question is, the comment below it, where it mentions about the reduction in funding from the start of the financial year, has meant fewer road safety activities. Is that a direct correlation to the increase in crashes? So the lack of road safety activities, does that mean that that's one of the main reasons we've got more crashes?
I think what we've done this year, we've tried to change our game and how we deliver our programs. So we're doing a lot more programs where we're working with community partners, partly due to the change in costings, change in funding, but also partly my work in the community and the engagement with different agencies. It's really hard to say what the correlation is directly between the funding available and deaths and serious injuries. It's a long game. We're in it for the long game. So
Yeah, thank you, Richard. And through the chair, this is one that is extremely subject to externalities. So yes, there may be a small correlation, but I don't think we can demonstrate causation. There absolutely, as Richard said, there are a whole load of factors that we simply can't control.
Do we track what those factors are?
We can speculate, and we can moderate the changes over time. As Richard's pointed out, it is a long-term, tracking, but I don't know that we could capture every single possible externality in determining what the causes of changes in road crashes are.
It seems really interesting that we're tracking the numbers of road crashes when, as you say, we actually don't have that much influence. And apart from the wonderful programs that Rich does, that there are so many other reasons why people crash, whether it's excess alcohol, excess drugs, whether it's speeding or all that sort of stuff that we have no control over. And yet we track this in here as if it's a target that we're responsible to try and drop. And
I think it's one of the mandatory targets that we have to put in our long-term plan that comes from central government, so we don't actually get a say in having it in there or not.
so these 22 or now 26 crashes, are they on NZTA road?
No.
Or is it just our local roads?
So these are just local roads. So when we track this, we actually we don't track state highways because we're not responsible for those highways. So we only do local roads.
So in that case, it would pay to track the data on why those people crashed, and if there is some way, if there's a real obvious reason why there's an increase, if it's one specific reason that may relate to the condition of our roads, the condition of our safety barriers on our roads, that we may have to focus on in future, is it able to, for us to do that sort of tracking?
We actually, with the Road Safety Action Plan that we develop and in the Road Safety Committee every 3 years, part of that is looking at what the main causes are of accidents and deaths and serious injuries in our region, and then our plan is set up all around those main focused areas. So this year we've got these 3 years we've got 5 key areas that we're targeting based on what those risks are, like motorcycles, young drivers, fatigue stops, restraints. So we do already target the areas which are the leading cause of death and serious injuries.
A bit more to add to that from my time on with the Road Safety Committee is that we did have a project across the Eastern Bay of Plenty where we were trying to work with Waka Kotahi to get access to the crash analysis system.
Yeah, we do that.
So that we could see the contributing factors to some of those DSI crashes and then look at what the possible interventions are. Like you say, there was a number of people that don't wear seat belts, there's the drink driving, that sort of stuff, which is an education kind of campaign, and then there were things that were sort of weather related or related to the surface, and so we looked at other interventions. That project didn't progress with Waka Kotahi, and then, with the subsequent change in government, we had the reduction in funding as well.
Yeah, and I think also sometimes when you deliver programs, you'll start now, you'll probably see the results in 2 or 3 years' time. At the moment, we're working a lot with young people, so young people aren't always driving now, but they will be in the future. So trying to make sure they're actually safe into the future for all of us. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I've got Deputy Mayor Amick and then Councillor Boynton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, Richard.
Hello.
And my question is actually on page 61 for Nigel, who's online. Hi, Nigel. Just about our waste, our landfill that we're sending to landfill. I note that there's been some changes that's going to make it harder for us to achieve our 70%. But I'm just confused. So the 4 waste operators from outside the district, and we've talked about this in a previous workshop, who bring their waste to us, are they actually making us better or worse? That's just the way I read it.
Through the chair, good morning, everyone. They could be causing us to actually exceed this target. Our target is to stay below 70% of the national average. That waste that's coming in from outside the district, we're unable to actually quantify that at the moment, so it could actually be pushing us over that 70%. So it's something we need to work on to try and identify.
And just a supplementary, so if and when we can quantify that, does that give us a pass with the Ministry for the Environment, or us putting an explanation about it, does that help our case? Or we don't get fined or anything for it, do we?
No, this is just, this measure is just for our internal reporting. It's just our internal measure, so that information doesn't actually go to Ministry for Environment now.
But in terms of our environmental performance, it's making us look worse than we are. Yep.
It does. However, we're still well below the national average. So at the moment, we're trending towards around 72% for the year end, but that's 72% of the national average. So we're still pretty good compared to national average.
All right, thank you, Nigel.
Councillor Boynton.
Hi, Richard. Thank you for your mahi mine. About the impact of cut-off funding, I noticed before this looked like in our financials there was a bit of surplus or something to do with roading. Maybe I've got that wrong. I've been getting my tables and lines mixed up. But I just wanted to ask, and thank you for the work that you're doing with connecting with other community groups to try and sort of subsidise what's missing from what you used to do before. Will the cut in funding have an impact in your ability to be able to service as well? And, you said that outcomes come in the next 3 years. Do you think that that will have an impact in 3 years' time?
Partly just one of the things that not just funding cuts, but we're not allowed to do any billboards or radio advertising anymore or newspaper advertising unless it's a campaign. Campaigns in the past we would have done a lot of safety messages, like in the winter about check your car and stuff. We've done messages throughout the year through the radio, which we're no longer able to do. So we've had some funding cuts, but we've also been told what we can and can't do. So some of that may have an impact, but it's really hard to quantify what the impact is. I feel like we're doing a really good job with the money we do get from NZTA, and we are being a lot more focused. Like one of the things with fatigue stop this year, we run 2 fatigue stops instead of 1. We looked at, we got a lot of sponsorship from the community, 40 plus volunteers, and then I think in Apotiki we had, related to young people travelling through the district, we had 1 less death and 2 less serious injuries or accidents that we could attribute the previous year to us putting that money in this year. So I think when we target what we have got and do it well, we can. So I've gone off the subject slightly, but there will be some impact, but it's really hard to quantify what it will be.
Thank you. Just supplementary, how come you're not allowed to do advertising? Is that a legislative change?
It's part of NZTA and their guidelines. In the past we would do, so we do advertising throughout the year. Now it's got to be a lot more targeted. It has to be part of a full campaign. If you're running a campaign, then it's more costly because there's lots of elements to a campaign, whereas if in the past we could have just done radio advertising on a particular message throughout the year. We can't do that anymore.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. My next question, I'm not sure who it's for because David isn't here, is on page 66, that appendix table. And I'm going down to the building and resource management part of the table. You've got to blow it up like 50 times. So I'm looking at Mike Avery and Lisa Tiorki's columns and rows. I'm just going along and having a look at the user satisfaction with council resource consent process, with our annual target only being 60%. And is that a mandated one or is that our choice? I mean, I see the others, we've got 90% with the other building consent applications. I was just wondering why our target is so low at 60 for consents. But David's not here, so I'm not sure who to direct that to.
No one can answer that. We can have that as an action point to the GM to get back to you on that. And
yeah, no, I think we've asked about that before.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got some greens on those 260%, but is that because it's too low?
I mean, I can ask any of the other GMs if they happen to know, but if not, we can get David to get back.
It's not a mandatory measure, and it says it's a new measure, so it would have been discussed and agreed when we set the LTP what an appropriate target was for it. We'd have to go back to that point to understand why we picked 60.
Are you saying we management or we councillors?
Council.
We adopted it, so
good.
it's our LTP, yeah.
And just looking at, obviously it is a new measure, but just looking at the two most recent results, one reason may have been, and we'll need to check this, is just the volatility of that, given that we know the number of consents is significantly down. So when you're measuring smaller sample sizes, you do get a much greater variation in the data. So it might simply be that recognising that, but we will come back to you.
We'll pop it down as an action point.
I do like the table though, just difficult to read.
Just to note that table is separately in Stellar as well, if anybody wants to see it a little bit better. I think it may come through separately in Stellar there, Councillor Touches.
Thank you. I also have a question on page 66 on the table, and it relates to stormwater. And I'm not sure if there's anyone who can answer the question. Oh, yeah, thank you. And it's a measure that it's a green. We've got the number of complaints received about the performance of the stormwater system. And I was just interested in the Peace Street, the stormwater at Peace Street, where we had a lot of rain some months ago, and there was a lot of noise about it on social media. And I'm interested, it seems like that hasn't translated into formal complaints. I was wondering if there was any thought as to, is it just that people haven't, they've complained on Facebook, but they haven't made a complaint, or have we done a reasonable job at communicating the objective of that system? And I'm asking the question because I like us doing these kind of biophilic approaches to stormwater, and we need to make sure that the community's on board with that approach, obviously, if we're going to do more of it. So do you have any sense about that?
Kia ora, everyone. Morena. From that perspective, my knowledge is that we haven't actually received, there's a lot on Facebook, we all know that, and Peace Street's performing as we intended it to. The very first flooding, we had a bit of an issue with the receiving pipe work, and that's what it was increased more than normal, and we've since cleared that all the way through, so that's given us better flow from the pump station all the way around. So with regards to, there is a lot of social media and there's a lot of talk. I haven't seen any formal complaints coming against that, and again, it might not hit the three waters, and we might not be tracking because it might be a complaint to roading that we haven't captured that. So that could be where that misalignment might be. So we need to get better at that. We are looking at, we have had conversations recently with Transport about more signage there and more communications. We know that's a strategy that we've left off after commissioning it, and that is of concern not only for the local community, but anyone passing through, what it looks like, is it safe and all that. So the intent of it is it's static water going up and down, safe to drive through at low speed. That's the intent. We just need better signage and better communication. And that is a program working with Joe from Transport that we're working through to rectify that. So hopefully as time goes on, people have that. The one thing to notice is we have not received, to my knowledge, complaints from people that are flooding on property, and that means that it's working its job, and we had a lot of those in past events around this area. So I have to quantify if we've had any of that. I don't have those figures now, but that's something we could chase up.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
Cool. Right, do I have any other questions on this report? Councillor Boynton?
Just page 69 in regards to the Appendix 2 compliance with drinking water quality assurance rules. And it's got explanations there, but I don't know, I'm just feeling aroha for those areas that are in red, and just seeing if if those schemes, will improve, or, will they be retested again to see if they meet that? Or is that a consistent thing that happens with those particular communities that leaves them to be non-compliant?
Sure, okay. Yeah, thanks for the question. So with regards to this, and I think it's been reiterated at the previous meeting and the previous before that, there has been some rule changes, and some of these non-compliance are just for online monitoring 365. But if we don't meet it, it comes as non-compliant. In specific terms, where the UV transmitting hasn't been achieved, it's more likely due to turbid water from the intake, and that's when we operated at a lower, and those we will always continue to look at how to better filter the water prior to that. The ones that are completely missing, which is the UV at Paul Road, that will be commissioning that UV plant in June, July, and then the last one is the Johnson Road for that non-compliant, which we don't have UV at Johnson Road, so that will be commissioning after the Paul Road one to get those on alignment. But with regards to those nitty-gritty ones for 365, some of the new compliance means that we have to monitor after the scheme, and we've always set up our monitoring at our treatment plants. Now we're getting smart about how we monitor after the reservoir and also in the network, which is the new compliance component, and we're working with various consultants how we can implement those widgets to achieve that. So over time these will go down, and the only ones will be unforeseen as extreme wet weather events may spike one or two.
Okay, no, that's good to hear, because even though it's tiny table as well, if for whānau who are from these areas to be able to see, that they're not meeting the standards, it's just trying to alleviate those concerns around how safe their water is, and if they consistently see reporting which sort of keeps on saying that it's not meeting requirements, we need to have strong answers for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just getting that narrative why we're not meeting it. Some of those rules were implemented late last year. We haven't had the appropriate budgets initially to put all these additional widgets, and then the technology to hook them up to our SCADA to report them constantly.
So that's in the works.
Yes, definitely.
So it's in the works to be able to improve the technology that's enabled to get the testing done properly, and because a lot of them are in rural areas as well with different schemes, it's likely that there's interruptions to do with weather-related events.
We are working towards achieving compliance, yes.
Great, thank you.
And the water is still safe to drink.
It's still safe, that's the main thing.
It's just that technical, you're not meeting a compliance because of a regulatory of a continuous monitoring. So there might be a glitch from a computer or a lab, and then that triggers the non-compliance.
Thank you.
Right, Councillor Dennis, are you just wanting to go back to that action point, was it? Any further questions? No, I'll call for a mover and seconder. Councillor Tunchos moves, Councillor Isles seconds. The motion is that the long-term plan non-financial performance report for Q3 be received on page 56. Is there any debate? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Dennis, you wanted to just mention about that action point. I just have been advised that there has been an admin oversight, and it has been added to the GM's action sheets for an update to us.
Is that in regard to the development plans for public toilet facilities, or is in regard to the councillor seeks clarification for the nature and specifics of the noise complaints?
Both.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion that when we receive our agenda, is there a possibility we're in this agenda 6.0 is confirmation of minutes? Should we have 6.1 as confirmation of minutes and 6.2 as the action points required? A lot of committees I'm on, you actually list the different action points as part of the agenda after the minutes, and therefore when it comes to the pre-agenda, a week beforehand, you can see that these are the action points that have just been copied and pasted from previous minutes. And it actually, if there's been an oversight and it hasn't been followed up, they can actually follow up within that week and give us a report on what the action points are. If we're used to doing that, can we have that reinstated, please, for all meetings? Because I think there are about 5 from this one going forward.
They do it on the community board meetings.
Yep, community board meetings, all the other meetings I'm part of.
How does everybody else feel? I've just been advised we would have to move to resolve that if we would like that to happen. Does everybody else think that
Happens on
that's...
the community board.
And it used to happen in our agendas.
Sounds... Okay,
I'll say
Councillor
move.
Dennis moves it. We have a seconder. Deputy Mayor Emmett, all those in favour?
Aye.
Great suggestion, carried. Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Right, so that brings our meeting to a close, and thank everybody for their attendance. Thanks to the staff there. Deputy Mayor Emmett, would you like to close with a karakia, please, for us?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody. Karakia whakatapu, ka whakiri e te tapu, kia wātia, mai te ara, kia tūriki whakatapai, kia tūriki whakatapai, haumi e hu e.
Take care. Thanks, everyone.